As Vincent Mary Church skims along the Wilsons River on a tranquil afternoon, it's hard to believe that 5 months ago the bridge above him was underwater.
That's where I got dinner last night.
It was apocalyptic. It was like something out of a movie.
The record-breaking February flood left 4 people dead and a community devastated. But as the rain clouds rolled in on the 27th of February, the day before the flood hit, residents had no idea of the scale of what was coming.
It's the old running joke, oh, it's going to be as big as 74. So, oh yeah. But this made 74 look like a walk in the park.
Now, where New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet is providing an update.
Today we have 11 flood warnings.
At midday, a press conference warned that a severe low, which had wreaked havoc in southeast Queensland, was moving south.
Lismore, the current forecast is for the river to reach the major flood level below the flood levels that we saw in 2017.
Bill Walsh was following the updates from his South Lismore home.
But we are actively monitoring the rainfall that falls.
I spent all day, I think it was a Sunday, downstairs packing up to what they reckon was predicted, similar to 2017 flood.
And at that point, did you think you would need to evacuate yourself?
No, I didn't think that at all.
Around 9:30 p.m, an evacuation order was issued for Lismore, with a peak of around 12 metres predicted. But it hit that and kept rising. By early morning, evacuation routes were cut off.
Well, I came upstairs when the water started coming under the house at 3:30 a.m. Then I thought, well, I'll make arrangements, you know, like, it won't come in here. It took no time for it to come in here and then consistently rise.
A few blocks away, Vincent Mary Church and his father-in-law Jeff were preparing to evacuate in their 3-man tinny.
And then it changed real quick from let's get out of here to, started rescuing people.
I was lucky I had a large stepladder out in my kitchen, sat on the top of it beside my pantry. I thought, well, if I don't get down off this ladder, it'll be over me head. And then only alternative will be to go into the ceiling.
The 69-year-old waded through chest-high water to his front room, dropping his mobile phone in the process, and started to cry for help.
When I got to the front window is perhaps when I did panic a bit.
Everyone was on the roofs yelling out, you've got to get old Bill. And then we saw him in the window, and you could he was up to his chest in water in the window.
With their expertise, they got the boat in close enough for me to scramble into it without the tinny brigade, as they're calling them. There would have been a lot of loss of life.
See if he's home. I think this is Bill's place.
Today, Bill's rescuers are paying him a visit. Their first meeting since the ordeal.
There he is.
Vince.
How you going, Bill?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, mate.
Yeah,
How you been?
I was going to come and look for you shortly.
Like many in Lismore, they're trying to make sense of how the flood was so much worse than initial predictions.
When they knocked at our door, they said, you know, it could be as big as 74.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I know the floor height,
Yeah.
and the floor height is above 74.
So is this one. It's a metre above.
Yeah.
How would it have been different for you if you knew there was a chance the water could get as high as 14 metres?
Well, I'd have probably moved out.
This is one of the feeder creeks that floods Lismore when it finally gets there. If it's torrential rain up above, we know that Lismore is going to really cop it.
As the rain bucketed down on the 27th, Nan Nicholson was keeping a close eye on the river height levels on the Weather Bureau's website. But the online data, which showed the nearby creek was steady, was in stark contrast to what was unfolding around her.
And I knew it was already higher than 2017. I knew it was going to be enormous. It was bucketing with rain. It was rising quickly. And so I just didn't believe them. And that really filled me with dread.
Nan and her husband made a narrow escape in the night. By 2 a.m, the nearby river gauge wasn't transmitting any data at all.
It's a basic government responsibility to deliver us the data that we need to make decisions about our survival. And it was 11 o'clock at night that it was through here and up to the house, so that happened very fast.
There's so much distress amongst the upstream people because the upstream people knew that a catastrophe was hurtling towards Lismore in the night.
Nan's neighbour, Annie Kia, has taken it upon herself to investigate the network of rain and river gauges across the local catchment.
The system of management of these creek and rain gauges has been allowed to decay and to fragment. It's clear to me that the system is not fit for purpose.
In the Lismore catchment, there are 27 rainfall and 19 stream level gauges that provide data to the Bureau of Meteorology. When the February flood hit, one gauge was already broken and at least 8 more stopped working due to inundation. Locals say this spot at Terania Creek, about 45 minutes north of Lismore, often gets the most rain when it floods. But the official records don't show how much rain fell here in February because this rain gauge wasn't working. And 5 months on, it still isn't.
It's metres and metres below the peak flood level that you got in February. Really
Duncan Day is a Byron Shire councillor and flood hydrologist who used to install gauging stations. He says this one, which went underwater and malfunctioned during the flood, has several flaws.
The whole network needs to be reassessed for whether the machinery shed is high enough above the flood levels. But what's amazing here is that there's a tree growing over the top of the rain gauge, and I'm shocked, frankly. Standard locations for rain gauges mean that you have to have a cone going out from the gauge where there's no interference.
Lismore City Council owns the gauges that malfunctioned in February. Its General Manager John Walker says all but 2 have been fixed, with parts coming from overseas, and all are regularly maintained. He says equipment was located above the 1974 flood level, and most have since been moved above the 2022 peak. A request for more gauges is being assessed by the State Environment Department after it was initially rejected in February.
This is absolutely an essential investment. I mean, we're talking about the lives and livelihoods of people.
The Weather Bureau says the faulty gauges did not hamper its flood predictions in February, but the Bureau is reviewing its gauge network. Residents are hoping that review will prompt urgent reforms to ensure crucial data is available when the next flood hits.
I'm not a flood modeller, but it seems to me that if you're in Lismore and this massive rain event is happening, you're a sitting duck unless there is data on what is happening in the catchment.